Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty at Haggerty10 Twitter handle. You all know that by now. And I'm joined today, and the more astute amongst you will realise we're joined by a special guest. And our special guest today is none other than the wonderful Kevin McKenna. Yay, Kevin, how you doing?
All right,
Tony, I think people were just wondering why Aidan's aged so much in the last couple of days.
I think so. And I'm also joined today by Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW. Sean, got to give the big up to our guest. There's no slight general direction.
I don't mind being the addendum on this one. No, I don't mind being the addendum.
How are we doing, gentlemen? We good?
Yeah,
good, Tony,
good indeed. Lovely day. Looking forward to the final.
Excellent. We'll get to that. But first and foremost, we do the housekeeping every morning, don't we, Sean? And we ask you, if you've not already subscribed to the Celtic Way, why don't you do it? It'll cost you £2 for 2 months, all for the click of a button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to SENECA Medical Group. And the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the number one hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of the video. Now, somebody won the cup final tickets, and he's a regular viewer and a subscriber, and his name is Ian Scott from St Andrews. And I believe, Sean, that he was absolutely chuffed and delighted to win the tickets, and who wouldn't be? And he's even getting the opportunity to meet you and I on Sunday. What more could anyone want? That's what I call a beautiful Sunday, Sean.
I did say to him that might put people off actually winning a ticket, but I phoned him myself. He was absolutely buzzing, genuinely buzzing. I'm sure he said it might be his first Celtic Cup final since 97-98 as well, which I'm taking as quite a good omen, Tony. 3-0 win coming, maybe. I don't know.
That was a good omen. Dundee United at Ibrox, indeed. Yes. Now Kevin will vouch for that. He's already met Zig and Zag. It's an experience, isn't it, Kevin?
I was at that game.
Yeah.
Larson, Reaper, and Burley. I think, were the scorers.
Indeed, they were the scorers. Wim Jansen's first trophy. Celtic won the League and League Cup double that season, didn't they? So yes. Now, gentlemen, there is a small matter of association football being played in the Mount Florida Bowl on Sunday. Rangers v Celtic, Celtic versus Rangers, whatever way you want to call it, at Hampden. It is the League Cup final. First trophy up for grabs, Celtic defending it. I'll come to you, Kevin, first and foremost. What's your thoughts generally on the game? Have you got the butterflies in the stomach, like Scott McGill there?
Yeah, I always do. No matter how well Celtic might be playing going into a game against Rangers, and no matter how poor they might be, although they're not playing poorly at all, Rangers. I've never suffered from overconfidence in any of these games, even when we were taking 4 and 5 off them in the Brendan Rodgers era. You would always go into these games because I mean you only need to look at what 2019, the Christopher Jullien final. We didn't play well at all. Rangers ran over the top of us for large parts of that game, yet we still won. And, Celtic in full cry are capable of running over the top of anybody in Scotland. But that shows you what can happen. So no overconfidence. But if we play to our full potential, we'll win. It's as simple as that. And Rangers know that as well, and so does Michael Beale. But he's a very astute tactician. So no, I think we will win, but not overconfident.
Sean, never overconfident myself like Kevin, but I always say if Celtic turn up, play as Ange Postecoglou says, our brand of football, they win. It's as simple as that. Because Celtic are the better team and they have the better players, but don't say that in front of Fashion Sakala. Chase you out the building. But I mean, it's what your eyes and what you're seeing and your knowledge of football tells you.
And you've set me up nicely to plug Alan Morrison's article, because he has done that exact thing with the advanced stats as well. He's compared the likely starting 11s man for man, advanced stats and data, and you're not all. Celtic have the edge. They are the better team. They have the better individuals. In my opinion, have the better manager. And I mean, I say it all the time. What Kevin said there, what you just said, that for every domestic opponent, if Celtic are on form, then they will win.
It points to that, doesn't it? Oh, has Sean frozen, Kevin?
Yeah.
Did I disappear there, did I?
You did. Me and Kevin were going to go for the elevator music there in a second. You know what I mean?
I don't know what happened. I was just saying, I agree. I don't know where you heard up to, but I was saying, despite all that, I wouldn't necessarily say I would be confident either. I do agree with Scott McGill, the butterflies in the stomach, but I'm laughing at the comments here, Tony. Gary McDowell's also saying there's nerves about to kick in, and then you get the opposite. You get Michael Ross saying Celtic will be ramming Fashion Sakala's words right back down his throat on Sunday.
Well, for those who've been regular tuning in this week, it's 2 more sleeps now, Sean, to get people really nervous and all that, Kevin. If you're that way inclined, I've been counting it in sleeps like a kid waiting for Christmas Day.
My part of my nervousness stems from not having yet got a ticket for this game.
Did you enter for the subscribers?
Well, that would have been improper, wouldn't it? Yeah. I haven't missed. I can't remember the last time I missed a Celtic Rangers Cup final, but the demand for tickets has been incredible, and I've not really been able to kind of. I can't really devote too much attention to it because in my day job covering politics and whatnot, things have been quite febrile recently.
Do you cover politics, Kevin, in your day job?
Occasionally I dip my toe in the water.
I wasn't aware of that. You throw that small incendiary device in there? Yes, indeed. No, for those of you who don't know Kevin, big, heavy.
I think I dropped out again there, did I?
No, you're back in. You're all right. You're back in.
Did I drop out for a bit? Because I think my wife's back at work, so I don't know if that's wreaking havoc with the Wi-Fi or not. So.
Indeed. Now, gentlemen, starting 11s and all that, we all have our thoughts on who will play. Sean, I'll come to you. There seems to be kind of 2 big positions, in my opinion, and probably yours, up for debate, isn't it? We kind of have this Moy versus O'Reilly and Abada versus Maeda. I think more or less the rest of the team might pick itself if that's the way you think. But these are certainly the 2 positions that you could maybe see the manager making a change if possible, because you know what he's like. He never really likes to play the same starting 11, does he? So, but Moy or O'Reilly for you? We'll start with that one.
I mean, that those are the 2 positions. I think if for instance, if Anthony Ralston had been playing, had not got injured, then I think that would maybe be a key decision. But ultimately, Alistair Johnston's been playing the last run of games and playing well, so I think he will start. I don't think there's any real debate that the central defensive pairing will be Carter Vickers and Starfelt, Greg Taylor at left back, Joe Hart in goal, Callum McGregor, Raul Hatate. I think it is genuinely, and Kyogo up front. I think it's just those positions that you can really debate. I might be wrong, you might come in with another suggestion, but Moy versus O'Reilly and then Abada versus either Jota or Maeda is the 2 that I think in terms of Moy versus O'Reilly, fundamentally, I'm fine with either. I'm fine with either of the 2 of them. And Moy made a big impact in his half hour on the last derby, lest we forget, right? But he's been in fine form since as well. I don't know whose dog that is. It's one of you.
Yeah, that's mine. The postman's arrived.
All right, I got lucky. Mine came just before us.
Is he delivering your ticket, Kevin? I hope.
Hang on a second. I'll just shut the door.
Is that the dog ripping the ticket up? Is it?
I'll just shut the door and let him have his fun. Okay, excuse me.
No worries. So Tony, right? So Moy made a big impact in his half-hour cameo in the last derby, but like Stuart Ross done an excellent piece on 30 minutes of Aaron Moy just on that, and how he kind of turned the derby back in Celtic's favour to get the draw. He's been in fine form since too. However, I think Matt O'Reilly offers far more off the ball. I think he's got better movement to create and exploit space going forward. And in this type of game, or at least the type of game I expect it to be, I'm going to go Matt O'Reilly, but I won't be at all surprised if it is Aaron Moy because he's earned it as well.
Kevin, do you go along with Sean, you a Matt O'Reilly man, or do you think Moy's earned that starting position? But depending on his fitness or the nature of the injury that he's been carrying?
I would go with Moy, simply because his performances since he came back from the World Cup have been sensational. I think the experience of playing in massive games for his country against massive teams on the biggest stage have carried him into, that confidence. You must derive confidence from playing games in the World Cup and playing very well in them, because after it you think, well, I can do it. If I can do it here, I can do it anywhere in front of any audience. So he wouldn't. I'm not saying that Matt O'Reilly would be fazed by playing in 52,000 mental fans at Hampden on Sunday, but Moy, there's a kind of an inner. I'm tempted to say an inner peace about him, the way he goes about his business.
A zen.
The Zen master.
It just, there is something about that, and he's never hurried. He doesn't react. He doesn't overreact to any little reversals that are happening. He doesn't berate himself if he does something wrong. And he doesn't go mad if he's fouled or if the referee acts against him unfairly. That's what we're going to need on Sunday. We need 11 like that. But Matt O'Reilly, I think the last couple of games he took a wee dip, probably because he was playing incessantly, and Ange knew when to kind of rest him. In the last couple of games, I think he's been coming on to it again. So I wouldn't have a problem if O'Reilly started at all.
Yeah, I mean,
very much contrasting views in the comments, Tony. I've been flicking a few up while Kevin was talking there. And, I'm interested where you fall on this, because I'd imagine it's tearing you apart in the heart, because I know we all know how much you rate Matt O'Reilly, but you've been mightily impressed with Aaron Moy over the last couple of months as well. So I presume you can't take a mulligan. You've got to pick one. But
head and heart job, this. My heart says O'Reilly because I'm an O'Reilly man, but my head's telling me what Kevin's just said there. He's the coolest customer. He is a cool cat, and I think that's what might be needed in the heat of battle, because Rangers will want to turn into a battle. So you need people that can rise above that and be cool, as Kevin says, on the ball. Don't react at all. I mean, you've seen Aaron Moy, even when he scores, he doesn't go mental. And in his media interviews, he's like, he scored a cracker. Thanks. Okay, it's all very, and I guess what we're saying there, I think that's the quality that he maybe has over Matt O'Reilly, because in terms of footballers, they're both extraordinarily gifted footballers that can pick a pass, can score, can do lots of things. So it is a total wrestle here, but I think my head's going to win it. I'm going to be sensible and call it in Moy's direction, only because I think he's been quite imperious since he came back from the World Cup. And as Kevin said, you can do it in that stage, you can do it in any stage. And I think this is a stage for Moy, for the manager to say, give us an hour, 65, and then he's coming on, and then and hopefully by that point Celtic can put on the agony or pile on the agony and put on the style, that kind of thing. And
I mean, fundamentally, Tony, Tim Anon probably nails it. What a choice to have either way, Moy or O'Reilly.
And if it's flipped, if the manager flips it and he plays O'Reilly, then I'm equally as happy. And how many Celtic teams in history have you ever had the privilege of saying that? If they flip it by taking out one of your star midfielders, that you've got another possibly potentially brighter star that can come in and take their place. So I'm happy. I'm just happy in the frame of mind that Celtic are going in, the place that they're in. And I agree. I mean, it's all, if they turn up, they win, don't they? I mean, that's not overconfidence. It's not arrogance. It's what your eyes are seeing. They've got better players. They're a better team, and they're playing some really good football. But as I touched up on Monday, Kevin, last 4 visits to Hampden, Celtic haven't actually put on a show. They've struggled against St Johnstone to win 1-0 in the League Cup semi. They won the final coming back against Hibs, lost the semi-final to Rangers in extra time, and did enough to beat Kilmarnock. So I'm waiting on this big performance. Hopefully it comes on Sunday.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. In the Kilmarnock game, again, the conditions were atrocious.
Yeah.
On and off the park. And I think if you look down through the years, actually, it's quite interesting. Celtic's record in League Cup finals is patchy. We've won 20 and lost 15.
Yeah.
And a lot of those cup finals, I mean, I remember a run between 1970 and 1975. So by 16-year-old Derek Johnson in 1970. Then it was Partick Thistle. Then it was Dundee. No, it was Hibs and then Dundee. And the way that the League Cup was played in those days, and we've reverted to it, it was like all the games in the final are over before Christmas, with the showpiece encounter, you know, the kind of second biggest game on the calendar being shoved into December or, you know, early in the new year. And pitches and the weather conditions are never going to be great. And I'm not for a minute saying that, you know, these weather conditions were responsible for Celtic losing any of those games. But it inhibits the way that Celtic traditionally like to play. And I think, you know, I mean, even in that Kilmarnock game, and there was another game recently, but the conditions were atrocious. But Ange still wants his players to keep trying to play football. It's not a case of, oh, bad underfoot today, boys, so it'll be the long ball. It's going to be really tough. Get in first in the tackle. It's still no, just keep playing. You know, the ball will be a bit slower. Celtic Park the surface hasn't looked great in recent games either. And again, a lot of that's due to, I mean, we had massive rainfalls in December and January. Although significantly, oddly enough, I went down to Darvel to write about Darvel after their amazing win over Aberdeen, and I took a wee walk on the pitch, and it was immaculate, absolutely immaculate.
I'm just glad Aidan's not here, Sean, because he'd be like that. What's the sorcery that Kevin speaks of? Celtic losing to Rangers, to Birmingham and Dundee in the final. When was that? That must have been in the mists of time, clearly. Now, Sean, the other positional change or positional dilemma, if you call it a dilemma, quandary, I guess, for Ange, is Jota or Dyson Maeda for Abada. You threw Jota in the mix. I will declare here, Jota, for me, always, regardless if he's off form or people saying he's not. You've just got to play a player like that, capable of winning it on his own with a moment of magic and brilliance, and that's what you want. And I'm always a Maeda man, and I know Abada's got a terrific record of scoring against Rangers. Barisic hates the sight of him, especially when he runs off him and he's sleeping and leaves him in his hunkers, that kind of thing. But I'm a Dyson Maeda Jota on the flanks for Sunday, Jota on the right, Maeda on the left. And I just think Maeda's work rate. And in fact, I lied to what you were speaking about at the start of the season, Sean. He's added goals to his games now. That I just think that's the right combination for the wingers on Sunday. Abada, again, just really unfortunate. Every time you think he's going to push on and come into some form, he gets a chance and he doesn't take it, that kind of thing. But scored a cracking goal when he came on Sunday. The two substitutes, Lincoln, Haksabanovic, we're all desperate to see more of Haksabanovic. We really think that there's a jack in the box there, don't we? That there's a
Definitely.
player. It's the sort of, you're winding that up when the music's playing and he's just going to come springing out the traps one day at some point and go for it, and it's going to be a joy to watch. But yeah, again, happy that we've got that to come on as well, and hopefully Celtic will be in a situation where they can do again what they did last week, and substitutes can come on, impact the game and score goals, Sean. But it's Jota and Maeda for me. And
same here, but I think Abada has a genuine argument to start, because ultimately, what more can you do when you're getting sub appearances than contribute? And he has been. He's only been in the starting 11, I think, about 34-35% of the season or something like that. So he's very much a bench option, which is why pre-season Tony I think we both picked him as like the 12th man of the year or whatever it was, like that kind of thing. Biggest contributor that's a regular sub. But he's made 4 starts against Rangers still, and he's got 3 goals and an assist in those 4 starts. And unlike like when people maybe used it for Giakoumakis and saying goals to starts, all of his goal contributions have actually come in starts. So it's not a misleading stat. It's when he starts, he's contributed those 3 goals and an assist. You're right, Barisic must hate the sight of him. Although he only sees his back really when he's coming round the back of him. But I have said before, I think Daisen Maeda, you know how highly I think of him, and he's custom built for Derby Day. For me, he's custom built for most games, to be honest. I like having him in that team. When we did our strongest 11, which obviously I said the other day, my strongest 11 isn't the same 11 that I'm predicting for Sunday, because it's a different question, it's a specific game on Sunday. But I said in that Maeda, fundamentally, he's got to be in the team for me. And I think Tavernier will struggle to contain him or Jota. Really, whoever starts in the left, I think Tavernier will struggle and has struggled against Celtic in when it's the real quality players in the league that he's up against. For me, it ultimately ends up Jota versus Abada. And Jota is simply the better player. But again, like with Moy, I won't be too perturbed if Abada is chosen, because he's doing well when called upon off the bench and he's got previous against them too. But ultimately, if it's between Jota, for me, it comes down to Jota versus Abada for right wing, and Jota's just a better player.
Kevin, you go along with that? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, Jota has to start. I don't think there's any defender in Scotland who knows how to play him. And I think also next season in Europe, he will be a more confident and assured player. I think that free kick against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, probably told him that he can play at that level. So he has to start. And I'll have Maeda all the time. I mean, there was an instant, there was a little cameo last week at Parkhead when there was the possible penalty. When he comes, the ball's loose. The United defenders just ushering it out. And God bless him. Maeda suddenly arrives like a comet. It's like, how did he get there? There isn't any, when you pass the ball to Maeda, there's no such thing as a hopeless cause. He'll chase everything, and he's got the speed for it. And that must terrify defenders. If I was a professional footballer playing against him, I'd be terrified. I'd be terrified because there's no situation when he's up against you where you can feel safe. Whether it's a pass back to the goalkeeper where he doesn't appear to be in the vicinity, the roll out to the centre backs or the defenders. If he's anywhere within 20 yards, those defenders have to make sure they get rid of that ball sharpish. And that, that over the course of, and the first hour or so, erodes the confidence of the opponents. And it brings in a bit of kind of uncertainty about their play, knowing that they've got to have their wits about them in 360-degree vision.
It's one of my favourite goals of the season, Maeda's goal at Ibrox, the one that Morelos assisted.
Yeah.
The way he took it, because it was like he kind of scored it, and it was as if he had a look of a man as if, well, did you have any doubt what I was going to do with this once I got the ball? I was skinning him, and I was just going to slide it under the goalkeeper because
he's another one who's
stupid enough to give me the ball that he asked for goal.
And his temperament is great as well.
Yeah.
I'd love him just to work a wee bit more in his crossing, because sometimes he's long bursting, he gets the ball, he just sweeps past a couple of opponents, and I think the momentum, it's like, right, I need to get the ball in the box now. Wallop.
It's I think partly because as well, a lot of the times if he's beating a player, unless he's cut back in, it's on his weaker foot as well. Which I don't think even when he's on the right, his crossing isn't what I would call great anyway. But it's more a kind of get power on it, put it into an area and hope somebody gets it, that kind of thing. But if he's doing that with his weaker foot, I'm kind of not surprised it's occasionally touching the floodlights.
That Rangers defence will not like to see him in the starting lineup.
No. A great Arthur Montford phrase there, Kevin, lung busting. Love all
Yes.
that kind of stuff. From Scott's work back in the day. Now, Sean, you were touching upon the two managers, and
Tony, sorry, just to I've highlighted Sons of Scotland's thing just to end that wee segment, which sums it up, I suppose, what we've been talking about. But Sons of Scotland says either way, the bench will play a big part in winning this game, and then Jim Stevenson says, remember, it's a 16-player game for Celtic now, which is spot on.
Yeah, without a doubt. Agree with that, and the 5 subs will have a real impact on a part to play, definitely, which is great. And again, going back to, we've spoken about the strength and depth for a while. I think we've got that too, which is another advantage that they have over Rangers on Sunday. I think they've got more game changers in the team than Rangers, and match winners, let's put it that way. Yeah. Now, the two managers, Sean, they spoke on Tuesday. We wanted to kind of talk about, and obviously with the newspapers, they've obviously held Postecoglou stuff, and they've been drip feeding it on a daily basis. But you were wanting to kind of contrast how Postecoglou's been quite calm and assured and measured this week against kind of Michael Beale, and him being a rookie manager in his first final with his team and all that kind of stuff. But you know, there's been a big kind of debate on what the two of them have been saying all week, hasn't there?
I mean, more so I wanted to bring this up so that we could mention that reply I gave you again, Tony, to be honest. And also linked to Kevin's column from last week, which I think ties into certainly the perception I've got of the two this week, that Kevin wrote, Ange Postecoglou's got a kind of Jock Stein-like grasp of the Celtic reality that surrounds him like nobody since Stein. And I think that kind of contrasts with Michael Beale's approach, and I think it's only natural because he is a rookie manager. It's not meant as a dig. He is a rookie manager by the definition of it. Now, that's not to say that tactically, Kevin's right to point out he is a good tactician. He's got the reputation he has as a coach for a reason. But I'm intrigued to see if he almost outthinks himself because it's a cup final against Celtic, and it's only 14 games into his tenure, and he's had a banner unveiled against comments that he made by his own fans last week. I'm just intrigued to see if that plays into the way that Michael Beale approaches it as well, because I don't think any of the noise around this week will play into Ange Postecoglou's thinking. As he says to you on Tuesday, Tony, at Hampden, he's been flying this kind of plane for 26 years. He can land it. It's very intriguing to me to see how Michael Beale approaches this if he outfoxes himself by trying to be too clever. That's what I would be looking for.
Kevin, I asked him, it was the back of something that Cameron Carter-Vicker said, and he said that the message from Postecoglou is always to bring your best individual game, best team performance, make it the best game that you've ever played. The next game, so the next game would be the final. So I asked Ange Postecoglou what he would bring, what does he do to be the best manager that he can be in these occasions, and this is what Sean was alluding to. This is the answer he gave me. He said, I'm not a big one for talking too much, but behaviours and actions are probably more important than words. This is that is the way I try and present myself to the boys. They see me in there every day, and I'm in there early. I'm at every training session. I am preparing myself for what is going to happen at the weekend. When you do that and you portray those behaviours as well as give them the words to back it up, then they follow that lead, and that's my job. I treat every game as an opportunity. I say to the players, age and experience sometimes not always give you wisdom. I know what it's like when your playing career ends. You miss it all. You have seen stories recently of players who struggle when they stop playing. You miss training, you miss the bad days, you miss the bad coaches. You'd have it all back. You don't miss the big games or the big moments. You miss it all. That's what I try and tell the players every day. Don't waste a day. Don't waste a minute of your football career, because one day it will all be finished. The one thing they don't want to look back and say is, did I really appreciate what I did? Did I really give everything that I wanted to? Did I really make the most of it? When I talk to them about trying to make every game the best game of their career, there is nothing to say that the best game of your career to date can't happen this Sunday or next Sunday. Don't use it as a game when you get the win and get it out the way, because you could be missing a little nugget of gold that will make it all worth it and give you comfort in the days when it's all gone. I mean, what an answer that is, right? I mean, it goes on forever, but it's like a straight answer to a straight question. I was sat there like, wow.
I mean, that should actually show some of our very good and esteemed friends and some of the national titles what you can get from a manager if you ask an intelligent question. They might actually get something worthwhile to stick in the back page, or the BBC might get something, because some of their questions have been infantile, let's just say. But that gives me a lot of reassurance. I think also all of the Celtic players, no matter where they end up in their careers, a few of the Celtic players will go on and play for other clubs in due course. That's a modern reality. But I think these 2, 3, 4 years that they'll all have had playing football under his management, both as a coach and as a person, will benefit them throughout their careers. And I think that a lot of what they learn, and a lot of that was included in his reply to your question, will be of real benefit to them, and they'll remember it, and they'll go into games for other clubs and big occasions for other clubs, remembering what he said to them during their time with Celtic.
Sean, when we first, Ryan McGowan was the first to post. Remember the speech that he gave
slide tackle on a waiter.
Yeah, slide tackle, and he said he would have slide tackle the waiter after Ange spoke. So he has that effect now. We've said inspirational words, don't necessarily mean you're going to win the cup final. But as Kevin said there, it's quite reassuring that if that's the way he speaks to somebody like myself after a question, goodness knows what he's saying to the player. I mean, he's saying the same kind of things, but I mean, you cannot help but think, well, we're guided by the right manager and they're in safe hands. And if they carry out his instructions, then, there's a good chance that they might win the silverware on Sunday.
Aye, and I think to me what comes through there when we're talking about either the answer to that question or Kevin saying about Celtic players, even if they move on, they'll remember playing under this man, is when we talked to Matt Smith, he's captain at Brisbane Roar. Clearly, I mean, you could almost feel it through the screen how much influence Ange Postecoglou had on not only his career, because obviously Matt told us that he had been playing at not a particularly great level, moved to Australia, ended up an A-League winning captain, and a lot of it came down to the coaching and the confidence that Ange Postecoglou instilled in him. But more than anything else, he started making his own inroads into the coaching arena, Matt Smith, and you could hear still to this day here Ange Postecoglou and the kind of things that he was saying. So occasionally you get managers like that. Not all managers do this. Some are quickly forgotten with the things that they say and the things that they try to impart to their players, but some live on in terms of what Kevin's saying. The players might play under them for a year, they might play under them for 2, 3, 4 years. But like Matt Smith, 10 years down the line, if you can still hear echoes of a certain manager through the things that they're saying, that arguably as much, maybe not as much as the trophies, but that stands them in a certain kind of light within the football world, I think.
Kevin, we're at a moment in time as well, aren't we? My father and all that you'll never hold a candle to Jock Stein. I get all that, and I've had all that, and maybe that.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think that's not. I know that,
yeah, but I'm just talking about. But you have to live in the moment and enjoy it, and enjoy this manager while he is at the football club, because he is an impressive leader. He's a wonderful orator whenever he speaks, and he has that knack of just saying the right things, especially at the right time. And if you're a Celtic supporter, you laugh that up, really, don't you? You run out of superlatives to describe him, to be fair. And
well, I think he's also achieved something else, which is equally as important. He's mended some of the bridges that were broken between the club at an executive level and the supporters, with the car crash that was last season and a lot of the noise beyond it. I think I mentioned in last week's column that a Celtic fan had posted footage of Jock Stein being interviewed prior to taking the Lisbon Lions up to where was it again? Fraserburgh. Because of the lifeboat disaster, five men were killed when their boat was hit by a freak wave while they were trying to rescue another vessel, and it resonated across Scotland. So Jock Stein had a connection with somebody up there, and without hesitation took his first team, the team that was about to play in the 1970 European Cup final against Feyenoord, up there, and he was talking about why he'd done it, and he said, in the grand scheme of things, we're not important, these players aren't important, but those men who laid down their lives, to save other men in distress in the most perilous conditions, they're the real heroes. And there had been speculation that, that Celtic, one of the reasons why Celtic were beaten by Feyenoord in that final, and beaten well, was because the preparation for the game wasn't what it should have been, and that included taking your entire first team up to Fraserburgh a week or so before the second biggest game in your history. But I disagree with that. I actually think that sent out a message to those players that this is who you're playing for. This is what this means. And it would have grounded them, because having beaten Leeds United home and away, they were being proclaimed as European Cup winners. So to have your manager say, yeah, that's great, but these are the people that really matter in the world, that's a good message to take into a European Cup final. And we were beaten in that European Cup final, not because we played badly, basically because we played against an absolutely brilliant football team, several of whom would form the nucleus of the all-conquering Dutch team 2 or 3 years later. Anyway, I'll get that history out of the way. And I think Ange has got that connection. Stein's connection to the fans stemmed from the fact that he'd been a miner. He'd worked down the pits, and so he had a connection with the supporters and the conditions and the challenges that ordinary people have in Scotland, in industrial Scotland, and Ange Postecoglou has that as well. He has it in spades. He's saying to the supporters, I know how much this club means to you. I know that you can have challenges in your life in the weeks before, and that you look upon Celtic as a way of just raising your head a little bit, having a little bit of hope in your hearts, and just a few golden moments. And that's, I think, the last manager that had that was Jock Stein.
Go with that, Sean. You taking that one?
Because ultimately I see where he's coming from. It's not, there's a couple of comments, you can't compare. It's not the trophy haul. It's the man.
Yeah,
that's the comparison. It's not necessarily the trophy, because nobody's going to compare to Jock Stein in that sense. Nobody in arguably British football has. So it's not that. I get where Kevin's coming from. Obviously, I subbed the column, so I'd already read it. But it's the man. It's the way the man presents themselves. Now, obviously, if we're talking about just the manager rather than just the man, then you could be up for debate as to who's the best in Stein. I would always back Martin O'Neill, for instance. But it's the man. And I think that's the fundamental thing you've got to remember.
Yeah, we're talking about idiosyncrasies and behaviour, Sean, aren't we? Again,
yes,
of men, not necessarily comparing them as managers, and you say trophy haul and stuff like that. Now, here's one I wanted to have some fun with. Well, say fun, but I'm going to throw this open to, and commenters, please come in with this as well. Now, we woke up this morning and we always have a kind of chat about what we're going to talk about, but I thought, here's one, and of course Kevin was on as well. I wanted to ask everybody, and commenters, Sean and Kevin particularly, if you could have one wild card pick for Sunday's League Cup Final 11 from any period in Celtic's history, what player would you choose and why? So get your players coming in, guys. One
Tony,
player.
I've got to say, you rattled me with that one, because you proposed it, 10 minutes before the start of the briefing? And I'm going, I ended up standing looking at myself in the mirror trying to debate. I did come to a conclusion, but I mean, if you asked the question, Tony, so if you get somebody in mind?
Well, I think lots of people will go the obvious Henrik Larsson and stuff like that, but I'm going to say it. I wrestled with this as well, but it's come down to two for me. But I'm trying to go. Jimmy Johnstone being one of them, but I didn't see Jimmy Johnstone, so I've only got my father's, and he is voted the greatest Celt ever. So you've got that to lean back on. But it's got to be King Kenny for me, my first football hero, really. And I was privileged to see him kind of in his last season at Celtic, 76, 77. And my dad said the season after, I think Celtic finished 5th in the league. Kevin will bring it, and Rangers were in trouble. And my father told me that it was heartbreaking because he didn't believe that one man could be the glue that held the team together, but he believed that after Kenny Dalglish left Celtic, he was such an important footballer for Celtic. So I'm going to go with King Kenny. And
fair enough. I mean,
Kevin,
very respectable choice, but I'm wondering
if Kenny had a pure record in League Cup finals, didn't he? He would score goals and Celtic would lose finals.
I felt sorry for Kenny because in the big, set piece occasions, he scored. I think he scored 4 cup final goals. He scored in the 1973 cup final when we were beaten 3-2 by Rangers. He scored against Hibs in the 72 League Cup final. He scored against Aberdeen in the 76-77 League Cup final. He scored against Partick Thistle in the 4-1 defeat. And that says something about Dalglish. So, in all of those games, probably with the exception that the Hibs League Cup final in 72 was a great game, actually. Absolutely brilliant game. You could always rely on Dalglish. So even when the tips are down, he's still scoring the goals in bad occasions, and it was just unfortunate for him. He won other Scottish Cups and league titles, of course. But whenever he scored in a cup final for Celtic, we lost.
Exactly.
But my final 3 would have been Dalglish, Bobby Murdoch, and Jimmy Johnstone. And I would say I'd plump for Jimmy Johnstone simply because when the bigger the occasion with Jimmy Johnstone, the taller he got and the better he played. It was almost like this stage is made for me. Maybe being aware of his 5'4" height, he's like, I'm going to use this to show that I'm just as big and I'm bigger and I'm better, and he always did. And you can reel off the amazing games that he played. And the most important, the most tense occasions, Leeds United, the 1971 Scottish Cup final against Rangers, at Red Star Belgrade, he just rose to the occasion. And I think that other players, having spoken to some of the players that played with him, when they saw him on song, it just filled them with joy and confidence. And much more often than not, he was on song.
Sean, Jimmy Johnstone for Kevin, King Kenny for myself.
Right. Okay. As I say, I get into my own head with this, as I always do. First of all, I thought, since you said for this Cup 11, this starting 11 on Sunday, what does that starting 11 need? Where does it need to improve? That kind of thing. And I don't actually think it needs much improvement, but since we're talking the whole of Celtic's history, I was like, everything's there. I can pick anybody. First of all, Henrik Larsson, just because he's a man, big game player. But then I thought, realistically, Kyogo could score. So realistically, where do they need to strengthen? I thought keeper. So you're thinking Arthur Boric, Fraser Forster after that 2019 final. Then I'm thinking, would Fraser Forster really suit Ange? I don't know. Then I thought centre back. Thinking Billy McNeil, John Clark played in a total football team. They would be used to it. Maybe someone else, Paul Elliott instead of Starfelt, maybe. Ultimately, Tony, I've tried to go with style fit as well as a big name. So I have settled on a certain man that you like to refer to just by Daniel Fergus, at right back. So I've gone with Danny McGrain.
Nice one. Good shout.
Although I do appreciate these comments from Andrew saying, got to be big Chris Sutton. And Alan Wood saying big Sutton would certainly be motivated.
Well, his nickname was the Evil Genius, wasn't it? I believe at Celtic, the Evil Genius. Yeah, I think he's shown a bit of that this week and in the lead up to this cup final. But it was just, I just thought it'd be great to see. Hi, Sean's heading over there. I just thought it'd
always.
be great to see the kind of plethora of opinion that you get, because I would have thought most recently would be Henrik, wouldn't they? They would vote for Henrik to run 40,
and I mean, I think
15 games, you know. So
all of the players that we've mentioned would improve that starting 11. I just kind of went a wee bit extra with it, I suppose.
Yeah,
but I seen there's plenty get mentioned there that we never talked about there. So Paul McStay got a mention. I seen Lubo, Moravchik getting a mention. Jimmy McGrory, Billy McNeil I mentioned, but yep.
Bobby Murdoch, my father's favourite player. So he tells me he was tremendous, Kevin. I just bow to my father's knowledge on that one, you know.
I'm not quite that old.
I know, that's what I mean. So
Henrik Larsson holds the record, yet another record of the most goals scored by a Celtic player in cup finals. I think it's 11.
Yeah, because you got the hat trick in that.
Another player that never really gets mentioned, and this was the same in his career, his kind of value was overlooked, was Bobby Lennox.
Yeah,
Bobby Lennox scored in 3 successive Scottish Cup finals for us, 69, 70 and 71. He scored a barrel load of goals, and he was another one that just always turned up in big games.
Yeah.
On that note, in terms of scoring in a final, Tony, there was somebody mentioned Tommy Gemmell as well, and I mean, I picked a fullback. I obviously went with the opposite flank, but I mean, could you imagine 2-footed Tommy Gemmell playing in Ange Ball? I could easily.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think. Well, the first goal that was scored in the 1967 European Cup final, Ange would have loved that, eh?
Yeah.
Where he ended up.
Craig to Gemmell, so he would have been, they're the kind of goals that Ange would have loved, and it would have typified his brand of football, wouldn't it? So you can also see that, obviously it was Steen that played that Celtic set out that time, but I mean, they dismantled Inter Milan in that game, utterly dismantled them. So you can see the kind of shades of that with the way Celtic are playing just now, with
Charlie Tully getting a mention there, Tony, after your article earlier on in the week. I think David Ferguson also mentioned stick Charlie Tully in just to score from a corner.
And the thing about that, I mean, it's great when you talk to somebody who remembers these kind of things. And I spoke to Archie, and you'll know Archie as well, Kevin, and his memory is just as sharp as a tack.
Incredible.
It's absolutely incredible. He is the doyen. He is a walking encyclopedia of knowledge about football, and there's not a subject that you mentioned that he doesn't know something about it,
So here's a couple of interesting stats going into this. See, when I'm having trouble sleeping, I kind of just play games with like dates and stats. So by my calculation, Celtic are currently on 198 goals in cup finals. If you include the Racing Club,
right, okay,
games, which I'll take that as a cup final. So if we score 2 or more goals on Sunday, we become the first team in the UK, probably in Europe, but certainly in the UK, to reach 200 goals in cup finals. And it's also our 98th cup final. So if we get to the Scottish Cup final as well, which is a big ask because we've got a very difficult quarter final at Tynecastle, that will be our 99th cup final. So we're one away from being the first team in the UK and probably most of Europe to reach 100 cup finals. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
That's knowledge.
I'm going to, just before we move on to the next thing, I'm going to pull the two of you up, because I remember when we went and done our Greatest 11 revisited, you two were adamant that this guy had to be included. The Brown Warrior says, after all the talk of players there, Charlie Nicholas has unsubscribed for the channel.
Well,
did you consider him, Tony? Did you consider him? Just not quite get there with
the. How could you pick Charlie Nicholas over Douglas? And I love Charlie Nicholas.
I love Charlie.
We spoke extensively about Charlie. the early Charlie was brilliant. I mean, when Douglas left, I fell out of love with football and life in general, and nobody was ever. I was it. It was all over. It's just I'm not playing anymore.
4th of August, 1977.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and then Charlie came along, and it all opened up again. It was wonderful. But
the next time I see if he's unsubscribed. The next time I see him, I'll chin him.
I think your man.
I think it's just a wee joke because Uncle Nobby's coming in saying Charlie's just sitting there thinking.
He's just sitting there thinking whether to unsubscribe or not. That's the thing. But no, I always give an honourable mention for early Charlie because, I mean, brilliant. I mean, he was one of the first to score, certainly an elite band that scored over 50 goals in a season. And that
Charlie gave me a lot. They gave me a lot of happy moments watching Celtic.
Correct. Especially Hampden in the rain in the 82 League Cup final, if you like to talk about the Cup finals. And he just had an uncanny knack of scoring against Rangers all the time. Or he seemed to, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And even in his less celebrated second spell, I remember him scoring an absolutely cracking volley at Ibrox.
A beezer at Ibrox.
And a 2-0 win, a very rare 2-0 win at Ibrox in that era.
I was there that day. That was the day that Archie was on the radio and he called it a brilliant triumph for attacking football. That was his words on radio. He did. He wrapped up the programme because he always did the montage and then they would play the commentary from both goals, and that's what they finished with Archie screaming a brilliant triumph for attacking football. So all good. Now, Sean, you wanted to bring something up about tonight, didn't you?
Yep. There's another derby this weekend, if you count Friday night as your weekend, which I think most people do. Celtic women are playing Rangers women tonight at the Excelsior in Airdrie. So I figured, I know it's cup final weekend, and I know that takes precedence and all that, but it's still a massive game. So Celtic are sitting second. Rangers are third, Glasgow City are top. Rangers are actually unbeaten, but they've drew 4 times, so they're behind Celtic, but they've got the same goal difference and everything, so it should be an absolute belter. If you can't get along to it, to Airdrie to go and see it, it's live on BBC Alba, and then if you're outside the UK, it's on Celtic TV. But just wanted to bring that up briefly before we finish, because I think it's going to be a cracker.
Good.
Yeah, excellent. Nice one, Sean. Well, thanks very much, Kevin. Really enjoyed that. Always good to have you on the programme.
Always a pleasure. Never unsure.
We kind of.
It's the hardest bit next, though, Tory. It's the hardest bit next. You live or die by the next bit.
Your score prediction. Score predictions, and are we going to let Kevin go first? And
of course, a special guest.
I think it'll be 3-1 for Celtic.
3-1. All right.
Funnily enough, that's what I was going to say. 3-1 for Celtic. I just think there's goals in Celtic, and I do think Rangers will score. I'll
go 2-0 Celtic. I think they'll keep a clean sheet. I think it'll be 2-0. 2-0. Plenty coming in already. There's straight away Kevin Ferrier 4-1. Will McMillan 3-0. Punch McNugget 3-1. Plenty here. You've got Narcotech want to put us through the ringer at Hampden. 2-2 full time, 4-2 end of extra time. You know, Tony, you were saying they've been practicing penalties, so
I did that. I mentioned that off air. I'm actually meant to bring that up, Kevin. Do you see the value in that practicing penalties? I think Andrew's thinking he was saying that they've been preparing for every eventuality. People say that you can't simulate that kind of environment, but I guess you can say whittle it down to your top 5 for a start, and then after that, if it goes to sudden death, see who would be 6th and 7th in line, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I would always expect that to be a big part of a preparation for a game that might end in penalties. I mean, just ask successive German international football teams.
Yeah,
they practice them, and yeah, of course you can't replicate, the atmosphere and the tension in a cup final, but you can refine a technique.
Yeah,
and I wouldn't be surprised if Ange probably fished out stats about what part of the goal gives you the best chance of scoring. Is it low to the left? Is it up to the right? So he'll have that looked after. So yeah. Look, Dixie Deans took brilliant penalties for Celtic and then put one over the bar against Inter Milan. because it's a European Cup semi-final. You can't replicate it, but you can certainly refine a technique. So yeah, I would hope that he's got them practicing penalties.
That's still the most famous penalty miss in Celtic history, Sean. Dixie Deans. Everybody knows about that, don't they? If you're
that and George Samaras missing one at Ibrox.
Yes.
Aye.
Which would have basically, in the grand scheme of things, would have been enough to get us the title.
Yeah.
Because then we get beaten by Inverness following midweek.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other two kind of that stick out, aren't they? We're trying to. No, I'm trying to think. Aye, that was. But I mean, everybody's aware of Dixie Deans. But then I think Dixie Deans
Tony, if it goes to
final, didn't he?
If it goes to penalties, though, Tony, you've had this conversation with me a few times about just penalties within games. But would your, to use a pun, would your heart be in your mouth about Joe Hart?
Oh yeah, because he's got an unerring ability to throw himself the wrong way when penalties come, And I can't understand that. My father always said to me, if you watch the ball, you can go the right way. It doesn't mean you'll save it, but I just think Joe's one of these guys 50-50. I'll pick a side. And, and Craig Gordon was the same. Craig Gordon was a hopeless goalkeeper when it came to saving penalties for Celtic. Yet, ironically, saved one when it mattered against Hapoel Beersheva in a Champions League qualifier when Celtic were under a cosh. And when they get that penalty that night, I was beside myself. I thought, well, it's a goal. I mean, we're going out, My dad's like, well, he's got to save one at some point. He'll never say, oh, he saved it. One of them. It's like miracle stuff. But I don't know. I would be concerned. But Scott McGill, I know nothing about goalkeeping, so maybe it isn't that easy that you watch the ball and go the right way. But I don't know. I would certainly try. But I think Hart's gone the wrong way quite a few times, hasn't he, for penalties?
He has, but I've quickly looked up, and I don't. Transfer market's not always accurate with it, right? But he's apparently saved 16 penalties in his career. Obviously none for Celtic.
None as a Celtic goalkeeper. That's just that kind of.
Did they save the Liam Boyce one technically, or did that just go in? I can't remember. But anyway. Apparently 16 penalties he's saved. And let in 54, I think it said there. But to be honest, that's without context. I don't know what a similar keeper has in terms of percentage. I don't know. So,
talking of penalties, it would be really good if Celtic, reached across the big Glasgow Derby divide and maybe gave Tav a wee. Are you
allowed to call him Tav?
A wee gift to commemorate his 50 penalties. I think that's a tremendous achievement in the modern game, and all praise to Tav for scoring those 50 penalties. And I think Celtic should give him a wee gift to mark it.
As long as it's not another penalty, the gift, then it's fine.
You don't have to gift him.
Tony saying, can I call him Tav?
My thoughts on that would be, watch this space, Kevin.
Careful what you wish for, Kevin, as well.
Correct. But yeah, it's that's being an hour, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure. It's tremendous. We love all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we've given our predictions. We all say Celtic will win. I guess I don't know if that's not a premature celebration or overconfidence, is it? That's just.
No, it's not highly controversial that the Celtic pundits are tipping Celtic to win it. But
as long as it's not, as Kevin said at the start, a Julienne type final, I think he's talking about the emotional wrangle the Celtic fans went through that day. That was a hellish day. Great result, but a hellish 90 minutes because Celtic really weren't at the races that day, were they, at all? And apart from La Gran Muralla, you're just like, if it wasn't for him, they would have got an absolute hiding and stole the trophy that day. So any kind of performance will be an improvement on that day, to be fair. I just don't see them playing like that ever again in a major final.
No.
He says, laughing and touching wood. But yes, all we had left to say is, Kevin, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Could talk football with you all day. Yeah. So could talk everything with you all day. politics included, but that's something completely different. Thank you, Sons of Scotland. Appreciate that. We couldn't have done it without you. Thanks for all your suggestions in the comments as well for the players. Great difference of opinion there, guys. It was magic. Crossing all sorts of. I think one of the commenters said Barney Battles. Barney Battles.
Aye, Barney Battles.
I was like, wow. But there you have it. But no, that's what we're here for. We do it every day. And as we always say, we urge you to subscribe to the Celtic Way website and support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. And it's only £2 for 2 months of access to everything that's written on the website. And it's for a click of a button, guys. Visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. And we also say thank you to our sponsors, SENECA, and the Celtic Way Morning Briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Gentlemen, top class. Kevin, thank you so much. I hope you get your ticket. I hope you get there. You keep up that proud record of never having missed a final. I hope Celtic scored 2 or more, get that 200 mark in cup finals. That's knowledge. That is. Love that.
It's been I can name all the scorers as well.
I don't doubt it for a minute.
Need another hour.
It's been a pleasure. Love it anytime you like.
Top man, thank you. And Sean, first class as always.
Cheers.
Guys, I say it every week, it's result dependent. Have a wonderful weekend, everything crossed and all that. Here's for a beautiful Sunday. Take care.
Cheers, guys.